a collection of nominally related so-called overseas contingency operations, defined chiefly by their duration. Once begun, campaigns continue indefinitely. What then of the American conviction drawn from the remembered experience of the short 20th century that war works? What evidence exists to suggest that this proposition retains any validity? Others may differ, but I see little to indicate that our affinity for war is making the country more powerful or more prosperous. If anything, a plethora of socioeconomic indicators suggests that the reverse is true. Whatever the United States is experiencing today, it's not a reprise of World War II. News magazines like Time may enthuse over today's Iraq and Afghanistan veterans as our so-called new greatest generation, but they overlook a rather large distinction. In contrast to the opportunities that awaited the previous greatest generation, when its members came home from war, the wars fought by today's veterans point toward a bleaker rather than a brighter future. History, the version that privileges the short 20th century above all other possibilities, makes it difficult to grasp the quandary in which we find ourselves as a consequence of our penchant for using force. After all, that account instructs us that war works, or at least ought to if we simply try hard enough. Yet it's just possible that a more expansive and less self-congratulatory accounting of the recent past, one that treats the long 20th century with the respect it deserves, could potentially provide a way out. To put it another way, we need to kick down the doors of the moral memory palace and let some fresh air in. I am not thereby suggesting that the classic lessons of the short 20th century have lost all relevance. Far from it. Yet it's past time to restock our storehouse of policy-relevant parables. This means, according to Sykes-Picot, Hussein McMahon, Dyer Yassin, T.P. Ajax, Suez, Iran-Contra, and yes, Operation Iraqi Freedom, pedagogical weight equal to that habitually accorded to Munich, Pearl Harbor, and Auschwitz. We need a bit less of the Churchill who stood defiantly against Hitler, and a bit more of the Churchill who, in seeking to police the Middle East on the cheap, proposed shortly after World War I, quote, experimental work on gas bombs, especially mustard, as a way to inflict punishment on recalcitrant natives, end quote. What he wanted to do is to use the RAF to suppress rebels in British-controlled Iraq. Implicit in the standard American account of the short 20th century is the conviction that history is purposeful. With the vigorous deployment of U.S. power, the best way to hasten history's arrival at its intended destination. A sober appreciation of the surprises, miscalculations, and disappointments permeating the long 20th century, beginning with Great Britain's cavalier decision to dismember the Ottoman Empire and running all the way to George W. Bush's ill-fated attempt to transform the Middle East, should temper any such expectations. What the long 20th century teaches above all is humility. Ideas are not mirrors, they are weapons. The words are George Santayana's, written back when the 20th century was young. Their function, the function of ideas, their function, he continued, is to prepare us to meet events as future experience may unroll them. Those ideas that disappoint us are false ideas. Those to which events are true themselves. Well, the ideas, assumptions, and expectations embedded in the received account of the short 20th century may not be entirely false, but they are supremely inadequate to the present. The obligation of historians to the students who pass through our classrooms includes this one: to provide them with a usable past, preparing students as best we can to meet events as they unfold. And measured by that standard, historians are falling short. William Faulkner famously said of the past that it's not dead, it's not even past. As a general proposition, there's something to be said for that view. Not in this case, however. The past that Americans know, or think they know, is worse than dead. It's become a cause of self-inflicted wounds. Historians need to do better. And I believe the means to do so are readily at hand. With that, I'll stop, and I look forward to your comments and questions.